How's it going? This is Skyless here along with Arctic. Say hi.
Yo, hi.
So we've been meaning to do this video for a while for Overwatch, but now that KL's finally back in action, we can finally do it, and we talk about the 4 gameplay videos which they released over the past couple weeks. It goes without saying we're like super pumped for Overwatch. It's by far at the top of our by far at the top of our excitement charts, along with Star Wars Battlefront for this year. But with Overwatch, there's a lot to talk about. The 4 videos were really good presentations of the game, and it gives a really good idea of like where they're going with the game and what we can expect when we finally get our hands on it, come from beta in the fall.
Yep.
So I guess let's just start with some initial impressions. What do you think from watching the videos?
So, one of the things that you and I always talk about on our podcast is show after show, whenever we see gameplay video, especially from shooters, we get gameplay from someone that is not very good. And so what it ultimately does is turn you off to the game because they're not showcasing like the skill ceiling and what's possible within the confines of the game. And I get that sometimes you want to hold a little bit back, but at the same time, I think you want to show your game off well. And whoever they had playing, I assume it's the QA guy, just phenomenal play from multiple characters, or if it's a set of people. Great gameplay overall from what I've been able to observe, and that's one of the things that I immediately took away from it. I love the art style. I think it's going to bring in a lot of folks, a lot of different audiences, which is good. That's a big plus because we want this game to be as big as possible. And I think Blizzard wants the game to be as big as possible. And if you're watching this, you probably want the game to be as big as possible. So that's a big draw for me. I like the character designs across the board. I've already spotted a couple that I think are really popping to me. Tracer, McCree. I think that is it Reinhardt with the hammer. I might try to play him. Mercy, and let me see. There's one more I'm thinking of.
Name all 14 of them. Just go down the list.
No, I got 5. That was 4. Who am I missing? It is Pharaoh.
Fair,
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the one which I'm most looking for now that Hanzo got bow, since Hanzo was the one which I've had my eye on the most as a prolific bow player across multiple games. So being able to pick up the bow with Hanzo is gonna be fun. I definitely had the same opinion as you, where it's the biggest thing. It was so nice because I think it was the Hanzo gameplay. It was Hanzo or Mercy. There was a McCree with like 300 points at the end of the game, and like every time I saw him, he's just standing there dying. And it was so refreshing that they didn't post a gameplay from that guy, which other developers will do. And I think it's usually comes down to like, it's the guy at the studio who is like the figurehead or like the design lead or something. So like he gets a preference and everything. But like whenever it happens, I get so frustrated because it's like, why couldn't you show the person at the top of the scoreboard for this match? Would have been so easy.
Yep.
So it was really refreshing that they chose gameplay that was actually good. They didn't do the garbage military speak of games like Rainbow Siege, where they really play up the military communication as if people are actually doing that. Just straight gameplay. That's it. No impressions, no talking over it, no developer commentary. I really like this approach, and they've been doing 2 videos a week, so I expect we'll get a couple more this week on top of this. But beyond that, we can just go into the topics here. We got some initial prompts to kind of talk through, just a few things I jotted down after watching, and then we'll talk about the individual videos afterwards. So one of the biggest things, like from watching this, what do you think are the most important traits for a hero to have to be successful from the gameplay we saw? Obviously, we saw a pretty big variance between the healing classes versus the damage guys.
I think it is just going to be like learning the character and then trying to maximize where that character, they kind of talked about a little bit in that PC Gamer article that we read, maximizing where that specific character's abilities shine. So if you're playing Reinhardt, for example, and you know how to utilize his shield, and knowing where there's the really tight hammer, where there's really tight corridors and there's not a lot of space, he might be really strong in that position. So whenever you're in can gank somebody in that opportune spot, you kind of want to maximize that type of, I guess, mentality, right? It's like this hero has these type of traits as a hero, whether it be mobile like Tracer, right, or kind of slow, heavy, bulky, is going to push. You got to understand, I think, that and maximize where they're going to be really good at on a specific map.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately going to be the player kind of playing to the traits of the hero, I guess, that'll make it shine. I do think having a really solid ultimate is going to be a huge deal. It's really the only thing that can kind of turn the tides. Like, if theoretically everyone's kind of balanced against each other, it's the ultimates that kind of tip the scales in your favor. So I feel like the heroes which have really high impact ultimates, and from watching the videos, Mercy is the one that comes to mind the most, because her ultimate is probably the highest impact that we'll see from any of the characters. Certainly at the current list, I think it's probably the highest impact one. But like having those high impact ultimates will allow you to be aggressive on offense. Like multiple people using their ultimates at once will be really hard to deal with. The big example which I keep coming to is like 6 Hanzos, for example. If they all fire their dragons and they're all split up, like they could take up a huge amount of space if they're coordinated. And ultimately, like if you don't have a really strong ultimate, I feel like you're gonna have a lot of trouble being successful as a hero.
Yeah,
we'll see though. Like maybe a hero like I'm trying to think of one that doesn't have a good ultimate. Like Reinhardt's is okay. I think Reinhardt's probably a good example to kind of pick on, where I don't think his can make a huge play in the same way, on offense at least, in the same way that like a Mercy Revive could.
You seem not. You seem to be kind of lukewarm about McCree's ultimate as well, and
Yeah,
I thought
McCree's
his was pretty. His is pretty awesome. So
it's really avoidable though, which we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But it seems like it's really easy to avoid. And I think ultimately, like the heroes which have the high impact ultimates will be the ones that, again, especially on offense, are the most effective. Torbjorn's another one that I don't think is that great. Bastion's is okay as well, but like the ones which kind of require a while to kind of work out and deal damage, right? Yeah. Like slower damage versus the high burst.
Bastions might be pretty terrible, to be honest.
So I think that's going to be a huge determining factor into how good the characters are. So the one thing from the gameplays, we can talk about like how the gameplay that they showed will differ from what we can expect when we actually play the game. The biggest thing, obviously, is that they weren't changing heroes, which in the core game you'll be able to change heroes at will, and the only thing you'll lose is that ultimate meter, which is a bit of a deterrent to changing. But like the fact they weren't changing at all definitely was a hindrance. And in a few cases, it was like, this team count clearly isn't working. Like, everything kind of stalled out on the second stage for Mercy's gameplay for a good, like, 3 or 4 minutes. And I think if they had been able to, like, just change heroes, they might have been able to attack it a bit better. Because they had a lot of trouble, like, going in through the front door, for example. They only had, I think it was Reinhardt. Yeah, so, like, they had some difficulty getting in through the doors and the alleys against Zarya and Hanzo. So I feel like if they'd been able to change, it might have differed a bit. Yeah, so like, how else do you think the gameplay might differ when, with actual people playing?
Obviously, one of the things that I think you always get, this is just inherent with gameplay videos because, I know QA knows, and they probably, again, we're showing QA or whatever high-level play knows a lot of cheesy tactics to use. And in that case, like, that's definitely going to be different once the once the game comes out on release. Like, people are going to find whatever's the easiest to exploit, whether it be hero balance or some specific area of the map that is really good for a location to kind of control. That stuff, that's the type of stuff that you're going to see that's a little bit different. I think they were just kind of playing there, right? They just had a really good person playing. So, we're going to see a lot more exploits is how I'm going to word this. Whether you call it strategies or exploits, we're going to see that, and that's going to be a pretty big difference ultimately in the game. And then again, like you said, and one of those things could be like you said, 6 Hanzos, right? Like that might be a strategy that a team utilizes, and then they do their ultimate to cover every single corner of the map, and then everyone wipes, and then they push the payload pretty far. They switch their heroes after they get a wipe, and then those are the types of things where you're going to see posts like, oh my god, I just played this and this was ridiculous, right? So
yeah, and then it's a matter of like, well, what does everyone need to switch to in order to counter that? Like what kind of it really should be a reactive move from the defense to kind of change whatever they're doing to match the offensive team before the ultimate meters start going.
Right.
Which, yeah, I guess goes into the next point I have on here. How do you think it'll play out like a more competitive environment? Obviously, this was probably just QA and devs playing a normal playtest. So there wasn't much structure, there wasn't much strategy. As far as we could tell, it didn't even seem like they were communicating particularly much. Like, it was hard to tell if there was really any communication going on, because both everyone kind of played as a roamer.
Right.
But like, so how do you think it might change in a more structured or high level player environment?
Well, one of the things that I think that we're going to see is just like a lot less movement necessarily from well, I would say the defensive team in a lot of cases. And I think this is something that you and I had previously discussed, but we might see some different, more cautious play with players kind of sticking around areas that, again, are highly in favor of whatever style of character they have for that map. So you're going to see a lot more strategy around positioning, strategy around character picks and when to pick who went at what time, right? So one of the things that I think is obviously going to happen, I think there's going to be a lot more character switching than what I think was led on to believe from that gameplay video. So, the first, maybe the first portion of a push for payload, right? Everyone has a very specific character, or maybe there's three with one character to kind of push off because that's the offensive initiate character. We need to get wipes quickly. And then there's some, meteor tanks that are pushing that payload so they don't die as quickly with maybe two healers, right? Healing them as they go along.
Yeah, then there's a shift when you need to kind of drive the nail home at the end, right?
Exactly, right. So I think that's going to be the type of high level, like ranked competitive play that we end up seeing. I would say maybe within the first month the game comes out, you're going to see some of that starting to unfold.
Yeah, the one thing which I've been giving a lot of thought as far as kind of just theory crafting how competitive might play is the ultimate meters are built based on damage and healing, as well as objective play. But in some modes, like you just can't get the objective, so really it's damage dealt, which encourages the defensive team not to just trade blows with the attacking team because they want to stall out the meters as much as possible, right? So like,
right.
It makes sense if you're on defense to just kind of camp corners and let people push into you. Pick characters like McCree, like Reaper, that are Torbjorn probably as well, being able to sit around a corner with a turret. Like being able to sit around corners like that and then just defend in that manner versus a like Widowmaker or a Hanzo peeking doorways repeatedly shooting out, where you're trading damage, the attacking team is getting meter, which will increase the time or decrease the time which it takes for them to come online and be able to make a big coordinated push against you with their ultimates. So
Yep.
I feel like in competitive, it's actually going to be a bit slower from the defensive team, as you said, like less movement as well. Where you just don't really want to show yourself as much. You want to force the attacking team to come and trade blows and spend as much time as possible doing it because your ultimate goal is to get down to the end of the time limit, right?
Yep.
So I think realistically, there's lots of peeking in these gameplays, and I'm not sure it's like the correct play in a lot of cases. I feel like it seems like on the defending side, you'd be better served to be a bit more passive, at least in the early game when meters aren't in play. So
I agree.
I feel like that'll probably change quite a bit.
I at the same time, what I'm concerned about with the defensive style is like how far you're going to be able to push that payload before it's like, okay, maybe we need to push out at this point. Like, what is that defensive line, right?
Yeah, which will come down to the maps, right? Ultimately. Yep. So, how did you feel about the maps from watching the gameplay?
It wasn't necessarily. I guess the gameplay kind of raised a couple concerns for me, but what started it off for me again is I'm going to reference this PC Gamer article that came out with the game. They were interviewing one of the designers, and I can't remember who it was specifically off the top of my head, but they had mentioned something around the maps being designed to have a place for every hero to be able to do something.
Yeah, there's at least one area on each map which a hero is perfectly suited for, or ideally suited for.
I'm a little concerned about the wording of that because it kind of makes the maps, and we saw this, just like doors and hallways, and I don't necessarily know if the maps are being geared towards the game modes or the maps are being geared towards the players, or the heroes. So I kind of feel like ultimately, just as this from all the play that I've had across all the genres or different types of shooters that we played, I don't really like maps that aren't suited for game modes. Like, they become, especially if you have the wrong size map, if you have the wrong, couple different balance things with the map, whether it be asymmetric or symmetrical, those types of things really affect objective-based game modes quite a bit. So, if they're designing specifically around the heroes instead of the objective, I think that kind of makes for some very, and I'm going to use the PC gamer term, homogenous type of experiences. So, I guess I'm a little concerned about how what I kind of saw from those players. Again, we didn't see very strategic play, so we don't actually know what's in the confines of the game, each of the maps. So that's kind of hard to speak on. But from what we saw, it just looks like a lot of doors and hallways.
Yeah, especially the point capture maps. It seemed like it's very much just 3 lanes, and like there's like a big wide open lane, and then there's like hallways and alleys on the sides. And then watching the payload, it was just like going down the main street, and then there's just rooms littered to the side of the route. All over the place. I really hope they go like a Heroes of the Storm type approach, where they have been releasing maps that are like tailor-made to a mode that may be unique to that map. And like strictly like that's what that's made for. If you play that map, you're playing that mode. And I think they could do some cool stuff with that, and also allow for some variation, and not have to worry about having a map be suited to multiple modes or types. Which I feel like the maps that they play now could work for both. From what I've seen, like it's pretty much the same layout where you could run a payload down the middle, right?
Yeah. Point capture would be a little concerning for me, just based off of where they place those points sometimes in an area.
It did seem like whenever there was a wide open room, it was just like a freebie for the attacking team.
Yep.
So like they didn't really do much to try to make a defensive arena,
Yeah.
It was very much just like, if there's a wide open room, it's a freebie for the attacking team, and then we fall back to the next set of chokes, which is doorways and hallways, right?
Yeah.
Not that that's bad. I just think it could be, could make all the maps homogenous. Homogenous is a good word. I like that.
Yeah.
The last point I had for the topics, and you kind of touched on it, like which genres / other games do you think that draws comparison to the most from watching? Obviously, Team Fortress 2 is probably the one which would come to mind for most people.
Everyone's going to look at Team Fortress 2 and be like, they're going to see Mercy and be like, oh, that's the medic from TF2. This is TF3, right? Well, we've already seen comments like that, like littered throughout the web. But I think any player that's serious about this game is going to look at this and be like, this is definitely not that game, right? TF2 is very much a shooter. And this is very much something else. I mean, it's close. I think the shooting is going to be very important in this game, but once you throw in abilities and stuff, it kind of almost plays like this weird hybrid MOBA Smite style shooter. I don't even know what necessarily it falls under, right? But you have like abilities that are going to affect gameplay. You're going to have and abilities, heroes that are going to affect gameplay. You're going to have people that know how to play a very specific style of hero that are going to affect things, right? So if you have a good Mercy that could, again, you mentioned the ultimate, if you have a player that knows how to play Mercy well, that could literally change the tide of a match based on that one hero.
I think it did in the McCree gameplay, as an example.
Yeah. So, having someone understand that this is not one of those games where necessarily shooting skill is going to be 100% dominant, but that abilities are going to greatly affect it. I think, again, kind of draws on that MOBA-esque style play. But, with that McCree, man, I saw some very skilled shooting. So,
yeah, Hanzo too.
Yes, and Hanzo. Very high skill ceiling with him.
I do feel like the actual fights play out really similar to a MOBA team fight, especially when you have stuff that doesn't require a lot of skill to make happen. Like, for example, the Reinhardt stun as an initiate, right? Like,
yeah,
there's no skill component to that. So at the end of the day, like, anyone can pull that off, right? And it's a really reliable initiation. You don't have to worry about the person hitting their shot or anything like that. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have characters like Hanzo, where his effectiveness in a fight is going to be directly tied to how good of a shooter player he is.
Yep.
Where the MOBA example kind of goes out the window because you don't have that free kill necessarily like you do with a McCree stun, which is another initiate type deal, which you'd see in a MOBA. So I think like when you look at team fights, I think you see lots of similarities between MOBAs. Obviously, there's no items, there's no creeps, there's no towers. So from that aspect, it's not really a MOBA at all.
It's like Smite Arena.
Sure, yeah. Smite Arena mode, which is just straight up just brawling in the open.
Yep.
Obviously with a bit more to it than that, but I can see the parallels. Monday Night Combat is probably the closest for me, although I know a lot of people haven't played that. But like the original MNC has a lot of parallels. Again, without the creeps and the turrets, I think they play pretty similarly.
So, where are we at? We're on characters?
Yeah, we'll start with the Zenyatta gameplay, since that was the first one they posted. We'll just go in the order that they released them. So Zenyatta was the first one. It was playing a point capture game on King's Row, I believe is the name of the map.
Okay. That sounds right. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't like Zenyatta, and it's funny. Um, I might get exposed right here, but one of the things that I've kind of looked at with these characters is like, what pops to me? Who looks stylish? And so
How can you say Zenyatta wasn't stylish? That's what you're gonna get to, right? You're gonna say Zenyatta wasn't stylish?
I didn't feel like Zenyatta. He looked like a monk, and I don't feel like monks are very stylish, right? They're like in their robes.
He's a robot monk.
Up in the temple, silent. They don't talk.
He's got the hand. The hand's going all over the place. Is what would look cool to me. Like I haven't seen a game ever have that much hand movement on screen. Can you think of one? Like unless there's some Jackie Chan fighting game I don't know about.
Afro Samurai, something like that. No, so for me, it's like I looked at the character and I already know I'm probably not going to play him. But from watching the gameplay, I kind of got a sense that he was like a jack of all trades. I didn't particularly like his primary. What is it? What is the name of it?
Orb
of Destruction. I didn't particularly like that too much. I thought that it just didn't play into. Maybe it's because it was projectile, or actually, I don't know if it's a projectile.
Seems really hard to hit. Yeah, it visually looks projectile. I can't tell if it's hit scan. It didn't seem like it was. A few times it looked like he was aiming at people. Aiming,
yeah.
Hits. But I mean, like with it being, it's either projectile or it's a hit fire or hit scan with a really weird cadence. It does seem really hard to land that primary.
I just didn't feel like the timing of that would be something I would enjoy. I did like that he seemed like an alternate healer to Mercy, and I think that he kind of could potentially play a vital role in aggressive styles of play for teams that want to push. I know you might not feel like the same way, but at least I think that he has a different option for someone that I think that someone that masters as Zenyatta is going to be kind of dangerous.
He's the support character you pick when you don't want to go Mercy, right? He's like the one where you're just like reluctantly like, we need someone to heal. I guess I'll go Zenyatta. But really, like I feel like Mercy just outclasses him in a lot of ways. So he's got the heal, which is a heal over time. He puts on a teammate. It's called Orb of Harmony. The biggest issue I see with that is like, what's the use case, right? You can heal one person up over time, but like once you have them topped off, they're not getting any value out of it unless they're fighting and trading blows. So the amount of characters that can actually utilize something like that is pretty low, as far as someone who like is constantly taking damage and also dealing damage and needs like the constant heal over time to be able to sustain, but isn't taking burst damage and dying. So like any low health character is kind of out the window because they don't benefit as much.
And I can't remember her name, but it's the newest character they just unveiled.
Zarya.
Zarya. She might be in that role.
Sort of, but she has shields, and she takes shield damage first, so she isn't really benefiting from the heal over time, as far as I know. So like it's a really weird use case compared to Mercy, where like she's just flying around getting people to full all over the place, and then when they're full, she's able to give them a damage amp, right? So like there's always something to be done there with the primary for Mercy. Whereas Zenyatta, it's like fire and forget, yeah. So like you don't have to be actively babysitting someone; you can be dealing damage as well. But the heal just doesn't seem like there's a lot of use cases where it's useful. Maybe it could be like if there was like an initial
healer.
Yeah, but he's not really a healer. I feel like that's the Discord, which is there. Like his Orb of Discord is actually really useful. It's a damage amp debuff for the player it hits, and it reveals them through walls, which I think is the huge component of it, which is a bit underrated in the sense that like being able to see someone through walls and be able to do extra damage to them probably means that player's gonna have a hard time,
So here's what I think about Zenyatta. You talked about the heal over time, right? And he can shoot after he throws and forgets. So you got an initiate character like McCree, although again it's kind of squishy. Throw it on McCree. You push with McCree, you throw down your Orb of Discord, and then all of a sudden you again have an aggressive healer.
McCree might be someone that benefits. I would still argue that a Mercy would be more beneficial from a support standpoint. Zenyatta might be able to give a little bit of extra damage.
That's what I mean.
I feel like from watching the gameplays, I thought Mercy's pistol was more effective in fights than Orb of Destruction. Like I thought her pistol seemed pretty legit. She was shooting the turrets down from Torbjorn. Zenyatta was like really struggling to hit his orbs. And maybe it has like a really good shotgun effect when you get a charge. Like you can just like straight up just burst someone down real quick if you hit all of them. But you don't really see it in the gameplay. The gameplay we showed, or the gameplay we saw, it looked like he was really ineffective as far as like damage over time goes.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I still think Orb of Discord's great. I think you throw out Orb of Harmony as like this trash spell, and then you have like a utility character. I guess it'd be like a Dota support, right?
Yeah.
Where like you aren't necessarily healing, but you're setting up kills for your teammates. Now, if there's a position for that, or like if it's beneficial versus having someone, I think Mercy's just so good. And we'll get to Mercy, but I feel like Mercy's just so good that it negates all of Zenyatta's utility.
Look, I'm going to throw back. We both played Final Fantasy 11. I'm going to throw this in there. There was the black mage and the white mage. And then there was the red mage. Zenyatta fits that role. He's the red mage. And some groups were like, I need a red mage right now. Give me that red mage. And Zenyatta's going to be like that.
But he's the douchebag red mage who doesn't spec into healing at all. So like he just takes like 1 or 2 healing spells so he can say he's a red mage. But he's really a wannabe black mage. But he doesn't have any of the tools to be a black mage, right? That's Zenyatta for me. And even going to his ultimate's Transcendence, where he becomes invulnerable, and it does like heal waves around him for allies. With the allies not also being invulnerable, again, it feels like a worse version of Mercy's ult.
Yeah.
Mercy's ult just brings everyone back in their full health, like, instantly. And the people have to worry about, like, oh shit, that guy just came back to life behind me, you know? Because they fired and forgot. Where, like, Transcendence, the heal over time, isn't going to help them if they get burst from one arrow from, like, a Hanzo or something, if they get headshot, right? Yeah. So, like, it's not going to help a low health person. It feels like, again, a worse version of Mercy's equivalent, which is Resurrection. Maybe the invulnerability period will be enough to be able to cap points at times or push something forward that last little bit. But it's it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. I feel like Zenyatta's gonna have a hard time finding a place in the. I'm gonna go throw it in the meta before the games even come out. He's gonna have a hard time finding a place in the meta game.
He threw out the meta. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he seems like a good character. I think, like you said, a skilled Zenyatta will probably be hard to deal with. He could be one of those niche heroes that just like is really good with a good player's hands, but falls short otherwise.
Yeah.
Because you do need to constantly be throwing out orbs. Like, if you don't throw out Harmony and Discord every single time you can when it's appropriate, then you aren't getting the benefit from the character at all. Anyways, that's stuff on Zenyatta. We can talk about the superior support now. The Team Fortress 2 medic, Mercy.
I love how you mentioned Team Fortress 2 again. People saw that Mercy gameplay, and I guarantee there was like 30,000 people. That's everybody that plays TF2 at the peak hours on Steam. 30,000 people like, God, that's TF2. This is TF3.
Yeah.
So Mercy for me, I mean, look, great healer, defensive healer to me. Although, again, whoever we watched was vicious with that pistol. They were dropping people so quickly. I was very impressed with their pistoling skills, but obviously, you know, the way I look at this character is very similar to TF2's medic. So I don't really have too much to add. I know you got a lot of Mercy thoughts. Look, I will say, Guardian Angel seems really amazing.
Where you fly to allies.
Fly out of ally to ally seems really potentially amazing for some really cool evasive like maneuvering.
Yeah, the video didn't really highlight it as much because she was just using it to get the people to heal them.
On top of that, they were in a bad position the entire game.
Yeah, because they were pinned back in the last choke before the point.
Yeah.
And they didn't have so I really think she'll be beneficial when you have like a Widowmaker that you can rely on being, Widowmaker's going to be up in one of these 2 windows all the way at the back of our base. So if I need to get the fuck out, I just go to the Widowmaker. And then while I'm flying there, it's like 2 or 3 seconds to get to her, and then my shit's off cooldown again, so I can immediately go flying back in. And I'll have a pretty high vantage point to be able to go to the person that needs it the most, right?
Right.
So I feel like when you have a setup and you kind of rely on where people are going to be and can also fly to people, like there was a Pharah, but she wasn't necessarily in the air very often. Or you didn't have a Winston jumping up and doing rocket jumps. So like the combination of not having very many options made it a bit less cool than it could have been. I do think it'll be a lot of fun. I think Guardian Angel setups will be pretty interesting. And I'm really curious to see if there's going to be some setups where like you just do all-out crazy pushes through weird parts of the maps because you can fly over things.
How about like 3 Widowmakers all in separate locations
You just-
sniping, and you're like guardian angeling.
You got the
from
triangle.
point to point. Yeah, that triangle D.
I was thinking like if a Pharah or a Tracer, or I guess Pharah or Winston is able to like jump over gaps or doorways or something, in like some maps you might be able to do a huge shortcut around the map and just have Mercies just follow, 1 or 2 Mercies follow through. And all of a sudden you have people in the back lines, a whole group of people to deal with in the back lines because they're able to take a route that no one else could. It could be interesting.
Yeah.
As far as her heal goes, she seems a more fun version of the Team Fortress Medic. I do feel like when you're the Team Fortress Medic, you're really tethered to the person, and like that's it. Like you're healing that person for now.
Yeah.
And like unless there's a big fight breaking out and there's lots of people to heal, you're for the most part just healing the guy until you get your Uber up, and then you can go make plays. But this Mercy in the video was going from bouncing from person to person continually and kind of giving damage amps to whoever was in a position to deal damage at the time. Which I think is a more interesting version of the way that Team Fortress Medic plays, as well as just being able to bounce from, like, Guardian Angel is so huge in terms of being able to get from place to place. And Resurrect, as I said before, I think it's the best ultimate in the game currently. Looking through, I can't really think of anything that would compare. It is a huge impact ability. We saw it, I think it was McCree's gameplay, right? Where, like, he just died, like, 4 times and got revived every single time at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Is it McCree or Hanzo? But like it was just like every time he died, immediately got resurrected.
Yeah, it could have been Hanzo.
Yeah, so like it seems like Mercy is to me Mercy is a must-have in any kind of serious team comp. And on the other side, killing the Mercy is going to be the most important bit of any kind of push. So characters like Tracer is probably going to be a Mercy killer, like just straight up like your job is to get to the back line and kill the Mercy.
Yeah.
And if the Mercy manages to stay alive, then it'll be really hard to deal with. And I do feel like a good Mercy is well equipped to stay alive, because like, if a Tracer comes at you and you Guardian Angel away in time, like there's no range to kill you, right? So I think it's gonna be really hard to kill enemy Mercies. I think it's gonna be one of the best characters. I think you'll need a Mercy until they introduce some other healer that can compete, because I don't think Zenyatta is a very good alternative.
Now, do you think the damage amp is going to be pretty important?
We can't tell how much it is, right? So,
yeah.
Without knowing. But if it's enough, like, that 10% damage or 5% damage, I don't think it's very high. But if that 10% damage is enough to get a Hanzo to be a one-shot hit body shot or something to certain characters, then that could be a huge deal breaker.
Okay.
Where all of a sudden it enables the Hanzo to be crazy OP, right?
Right. Okay.
That was the one which I thought of the most was Hanzo, because the bow damage is really high as is.
It's really high, yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, that's Mercy. I think Mercy, to me, is probably the biggest must-have character in the game, in the current lineup. So the next one that they released was McCree, our gunslinger.
Whew.
What'd you think?
I can't wait to play McCree.
Yeah, you're big on McCree.
Look, I like the six
six
shooter. Yeah, it's a cool pistol, man. And the particular gameplay that we watched, whoever that was just wrecking shop. So it made it even more important for me to be like, you know what? Let me go play some Unreal Tournament. Let me get my shot down by the time this comes out, because I haven't been playing a whole lot of PC shooters lately. So once I'm back in full effect, I will have my aiming skills back, and I feel like I'm gonna be just tearing people up. I'm gonna be like the Wild West. I'm gonna just be gunning them down. High noon. Don't come see me high noon, because you're gonna get dropped. That's what I feel like with McCree is gonna happen. The one thing I didn't particularly like was his combat role. The evasive it didn't seem like he was going very far. I mean, it looked like it was a little bit faster. There was an 8-second cooldown, which I thought was way too long.
It does reload the weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
but we didn't see it utilized very much, because usually if he fanned the whole round, so the full 6 shots, the person died, right?
Yeah, they were dead. So it didn't really matter. I did like that flashbang because of the stun. It got him out of a lot of situations on that Rein. Like, he hit that Reinhardt, who he was about to die. Literally, the Reinhardt was in front of him. Yeah. He threw that flashbang. Reinhardt got stunned, and he shifted back and got away. So there's things like that where I think that you can use it both offensively and defensively, and that's probably going to be the thing that's going to be the make or break for him, is like, if you know how to use those flashbangs to stun opponents, like literally every time you have it, boom, you get a stun, and then you drop them with Peacekeeper, like they're done, right? Like it's a great, I think, offensive weapon.
It was a free kill a lot of the time.
It was.
I mentioned earlier that I feel like camping around corners is going to be a huge beneficial way of playing. And McCree is kind of the counter to that, right? Because he turns the corner, immediately drops a flashbang and gets the kill. So like, if you're sitting there trying to shotgun them and like anticipate them coming, McCree is the initiator that can completely shut that down. And I feel like he's going to be the first person into the room every single time if you're playing correctly.
Or Tracer.
It's either him or Tracer. Although you think about it, like
Tracer's like the counter to Tracer.
He shuts down Tracer pretty hard.
I felt like, look, there was a couple times when that Tracer popped him.
Yeah,
and then
usually his
I would
flashbang
say
was like cooldown or he wasn't reacting in time.
Yeah, so I mean, there was a couple times where the Tracer in that gameplay got the best of him, but I think more times than not, he was the one that came out on top of it. But I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. McCree, there's actually 3 interesting matchups, and it's funny that they all kind of showed him. Hanzo, McCree, Tracer, McCree, and then Tracer Hanzo. I think those are going to be all very interesting, like initiate or aggressive style players that we're going to see.
I'd say Hanzo Mercy is another one, which will showcase.
Yeah,
Hanzo
so
one hit in the Mercy.
Yep, I definitely feel like those are going to be some very interesting dynamics. Look, you're not very high on Deadeye, the ultimate form.
I think the ultimate's really poor. He gets a kill a few times. The one crazy thing is it's a 10-second channel, which is enough time that you are denying the area really heavily. Where in the sense, like, they have to go into the hallways and into the doorways during the duration of your ultimate to get away. But it is really obvious. Like, there's the eagle call when you do it, which everyone hears. It's really clear, so it's going to be really hard to get kills with it, I feel like, against a good team, especially if you're expecting it. But it can force people to move. In Dota, there's a character called Medusa who's very similar. She has a stone form, you know, like the stone gaze kind of thing.
Stone
you can't
gaze,
look at her or else you get stunned. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, it forces people to run away as a result of casting it. And I feel like that's how Deadeye plays out.
Yeah,
I don't think it necessarily is a killing thing, but it can set things up and kind of like give you 10 seconds to get position on people.
At the same time, the one time that you're going to be able to get a lot of kills on this, and I'm going to use Destiny as an example because a lot of players time their supers, particularly Void Walkers or Titans, around players capturing points. So on point capture, you're going to see McCree's running in on a defensive team or an offensive team, whatever. Whatever that conflict is at the point, and McCree comes in, kind of sitting in the back, getting a wide spread of, okay, they're boom, 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 everybody's dead, let's cap this point and move on, right? I think that's going to happen quite a bit.
Yeah, especially I think defensively is pretty strong in the sense that if a team is on the point and like McCree's your last guy alive, that can be the thing which gives you enough time to get back to the base. If he just channels it and then they have to leave.
Yeah.
Or they have to kill him really quickly, which his health pool is pretty low. So I feel like we saw it a lot with Farah in the Zenyatta game. But like she kept ulting and just dying because she was up in the sky shooting at people, and it's like a pretty long channel. And I think it's potential that McCree just gets killed pretty quickly, or he has to use it on one person because that person's going to kill him otherwise. Like the Hanzo's charging his bow at him, so it's like, okay, I have to fire it now, or else I die. So it's gonna be a positioning thing, right? So you have to be perfect positioning to find Deadeye to be effective. But again, like I feel like just like I said with Zenyatta, I think you can throw out the combat roll. Aside from the reload mechanic's good, but the roll doesn't actually go anywhere, and it would help dodge shots very often. But you throw that out, flashbang is the character. Like flashbang is what the character's about, and everything kind of revolves around that, which is a little bit weird for a gunslinger. But at the end of the day, like that's what the whole gameplay revolves around. And a player who's good with the flashbangs and really fast on it. As you mentioned, the Tracer versus McCree dynamic. If the McCree is really quick, Tracer can't get out. And just dies. So it's going to be the determining factors for a good McCree player, I think, is going to be how good your flashbang is. Also, the primary fire, used at a distance, is a pretty reliable, like, constant damage. Dink, 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 dink.
Dink. Yeah, he was doing that a lot.
He was missing a lot, too, though.
He was.
I think a good player with that, is going to be really hard to deal with. So it's just a lot of damage that's pretty reliable, right? It's going to be pretty easy to shoot. It goes straight. Don't have to worry about Hanzo, where you have to charge it up. Don't have to worry about Widowmaker, where like you're usually at a distance and have to perfectly aim on their heads and stuff. It's just straight up, just boom, 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 and keep doing damage and being annoying. So yeah, I think McCree's okay. I think because flashbang is so effective, he's always going to have a niche in a team comp. Like, be it offense or defense, he can hold corners really well.
I mentioned style earlier. McCree has all the swag right now.
It's like the most generic character archetype ever. I don't know how you can say Robot Monk is boring, but Gunslinger, oh, that's really original. It's really good. He's got style.
All the swag.
I love Gunslinger, so like for me, like
look at you.
I should really love him.
Exactly.
But at the same time, the character's been done like a bajillion times. The question is, will Blizzard remove his cigar? Because they've removed it from every other Blizzard character.
I guess, yeah.
Tychus got removed. I think a WoW character got removed as well.
Yep.
So we'll see if he maintains the cigar. Did you see his belt buckle, by the way?
I can picture it, yeah.
It says BAMF on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess he's got some style. And then the last gameplay they released was Hanzo, which again I was super pumped for. I think every game that's had a bow, I've used the bow primarily. And every game that has like an arced weapon, like a grenade launcher, I've used the arced weapon. So Hanzo has both.
Hanzo, high skill ceiling character. This is like the shooter of the shooterist are going to be playing Hanzo, and if they're really good, I just feel bad for the other team because I feel like Hanzo is going to be wrecking people.
Yeah, if you're against like a small amount, like 3 to 4 Hanzos, and they're all like really good FPS players, you are going to have a hard time, regardless of what you pick. Like, I don't think there's really a character that counters Hanzo really hard. I can't really think of anything which is like super hard for him to deal with. Like the tanks are probably a little bit annoying because he has to hit them like over and over and over to get the kill. But for the most part, if you're good, you saw a few of those shots. Like when he got the
ridiculous shots,
man. He got the shot. I think it was on the Mercy that was flying backwards. And he got the headshot on her. She was going back. It seems like crazy good.
There was like some Twitch shots that I saw that we do the ooh. Yeah, it was just like that must have happened about 4 times during that gameplay. It was like, ooh, man.
And this isn't even like a top player, right? This is just like probably the best QA guy. If you put it in the hands of someone that's really skilled at shooting, I think he's going to be discussed. It wouldn't surprise me if once the game comes out and they see how good people are at shooting things, if he gets some nerfs. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And the rest of his kit's good too. Sonic Arrow reveals people through walls and actually shows the outline for everyone. So like that's a huge utility.
Does it explode when it's done?
I'm not sure what happens. I'm not sure if you can destroy it at all. I assume you can, but I didn't see any like gameplay where it got destroyed.
Okay,
but it's basically like a dome, right? And it just reveals the people.
Yeah, I was trying to determine if it was like in addition to being like a sonar, if it actually like if a character was by it, it actually procced and was like a proximity mine as well.
No, I think it's just strictly the vision.
Okay. Okay.
And I assume they can destroy it. It seemed like it was destroyable from looking at the videos. So he's got that, which is like crazy good utility. Being able to see where people are is super valuable in any game. Although maybe a bit less so in this game, which I mean it's pretty narrow corridors, linear. Like you know where to look.
Where people are going to be. Yep.
But again, having a couple Hanzos pretty much gives you map hacks. At least for short periods of time. Scatter Arrow, we didn't see a lot of really good usage, I don't think.
I tried watching the gameplay maybe 3 or 4 times to try to slow it down so I could see some better shots. It was hard to... It didn't register well for the gameplay that we saw, and he didn't use it a lot in corridors where like people were actually sitting. What I actually saw him doing is like meleeing quite a bit, where I might have tried to maybe thrown an arrow first in that to try to initiate as I'm getting towards that person. A scatter arrow, so we get the the splash, but he was just going in for the melee.
He did use scatter arrow every time he came behind that Widowmaker, who was, by the way, completely oblivious to everything.
Yeah, I saw that.
Every time he came behind her, he would fire the scatter arrow at her feet to get like the guaranteed damage, and then either melee or shoot her or finish her.
Yeah.
Versus he could have just lined up a headshot really easily because she wasn't moving. But like that was the only time I really saw it used explicitly. I didn't notice it being used in combat. Partially because I imagine at the end of the day it makes more sense just to charge another shot versus aim at the ground, fire your scatter arrow kind of like a UT flak, and then adjust back to shooting again. Because the damage didn't seem that much higher than just a regular headshot would be. So you might as well just keep shooting the bow, it seemed like. Yeah, but it's still good. Like there's going to be occasions that make sense to use it. Especially if you know, again, if you know someone's camping a corner, you fire that first to weaken them, then you turn the corner with your storm bow and you only have to get a body shot, right?
Yep, that's exactly how I see the utility being used.
I think you'll see some really unique ways to utilize that once people learn the maps and where people sit and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And his ultimate Dragon Strike goes through walls, and like that alone is super valuable. Again, because it's going to be really predictable where people are. They're going to be holding these alleyways, these choke points, these doorways, and firing a Dragon Strike through the wall. If it doesn't get the kill, and I don't think it often will, because it is pretty easy to avoid on its own.
It seemed like it was pretty slow.
It's really slow. But you have to move, right? You have to get out. And that gives an opening for Hanzo to go into that hallway and start lining things up. And he's going to know roughly where you're going, because you're probably not going to have that many options to run from it, right? Yeah. So it can be a big opening. Again, like McCree may be the first person in. A Dragon Strike might be the thing that also can open up the alley for a push. So yeah, I thought Hanzo looked really, really good. I think he'll probably be one of the higher tier characters as well, just because he, like, in a good player's hands, that is a lot of damage output.
Yep.
That said, I think people will be pretty awful with him as well.
I don't plan on playing Hanzo. One thing I do want to mention, because we haven't really talked about it at all, is his wall climbing.
Oh yeah, I didn't even list that here.
It's something that I thought was really cool. I was wondering, there's a couple spots where he started to like, oh, I'm gonna look. Oh wait, I can't jump up here. I'm gonna run to another spot. Oh, I can't jump up here. I saw him do that a couple times.
I think he needs a wall.
Yeah, and there was like piping or something blocking him. Yeah. It's like it wasn't like a straight shot, straight up. One of the things I didn't see, or I can't remember, is if he could jump off of a wall. So like he's running and then up a wall and then jumps backwards off of it. Could he do that?
It looked like he was locked into it. If I had to guess, it's an animation playing that you're locked in.
Oh man!
But it'd be cool if you could.
Yeah, because
just for the jump off the wall and do like a 180 bow attack. It'd be pretty fun.
Like the next evolution of that that I'm already thinking about. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna turn this into Unreal Tournament right now. Let me do a wall jump.
Yeah, I don't think you could. The wall scrambling seemed really fun though. Like the animation they have for it, I think was really cool. And it's funny because I brought up Jackie Chan earlier, but like him going up walls looks like Jackie Chan scaling a wall.
It does,
because he's like way more hand movement than it actually requires. Like I could see like Jackie Chan like frantically going up the wall as a result. So that's the list. So I'll go ahead and ask if you had to rank these in terms of power. If you had to rank them in power, how would you rank these four?
Of course, you would ask.
I'll throw it like as a really broad. Again, like there's gonna be situational, but like as a whole, where do you think they are right now? And again, we only saw one player play them, which is the other part.
It's close between like Hanzo and Mercy. I think is in terms of what overall I saw. Whoever was playing with McCree was really, really good, and so they like made that McCree gameplay shine to me. But from a pure like what I could potentially see happening, I think Hanzo and Mercy are definitely very strong. McCree is going to be a very nice player, and then Zenyatta. I don't think Zenyatta's on that list like of top tier players as of right now.
I agree. That's probably my same list. I mean, Mercy, Hanzo, McCree, and then Zenyatta. I do think like the way everything works out, Flashbang might end up being one of the best abilities in the game, just because of its strength up close, which is what a lot of the game revolves around.
Yeah.
So it's possible that McCree ends up actually being more useful than Hanzo, depending on the player probably and the situation. But if Hanzo gets like open season, whew, I think Hanzo is lethal.
And I mean, one of the things that obviously, if you're listening to this, we're thinking about this from a 1-versus-1 engagement, right? Like, a lot of this is going to be like, how do these characters work in tandem with one another, right? So what player is accenting and making another player shine, right? Obviously, having some support characters that help each one of these is going to make them play even better. So, just kind of keeping that in the context of this, but it's more like what do you see from an individual standpoint on who's going to make a difference versus how does the team composition make a difference?
Yeah, and it's always possible that like Zenyatta has some combo, like one person that he combos really, really well with, and that's enough to make him really, really good because he can, for example, Orb of Discord is enough to amp a damage that makes it one hit, right?
Right, exactly.
Like, all of a sudden, McCree's pistols do one hit when he kills on Orb of Discord targets.
Yeah.
Like that would be pretty huge. But yeah, I think that's where I see them right now. Mercy just seems so good to me. Like that's probably the biggest one from watching the gameplay. And I really am curious to see in this next wave of videos if they post a tank, because I am, from watching the videos, struggling to see the role of the tank in these matches. They obviously are there to soak up damage. They obviously do that at times. The Reinhardt and the Hanzo
I like
gameplay was pretty good.
I was gonna say that Reinhardt that we saw seemed like they were pretty.
I can't remember.
It was McCree and Reinhardt.
Yeah.
That Reinhardt with the shield in particular, I think that shield can probably be utilized a little bit better. I thought it was utilized pretty good there, but again, I want to see it from that point of view, right? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Like, what does a good Reinhardt look like? I think that he could potentially be very good. I'm also interested in Zarya, just from a
Zarya, I think has potential to be like really good.
Yeah.
It's really the grenade launcher. Like, she can influence multiple lanes, right, at once. And she's hard to deal with, like, if she's in the middle of another one. It's like, realistically, you can have influence on 2 or 3 lanes just by being there and firing grenade launchers to the other one.
Reminds me of the assault from Evolve. That shield, personal shield, stuff like that, yeah.
I think Zarya's been good. Like, Winston we got a glimpse of in one of the gameplays where he jumped on the Zenyatta and killed him. And that seems fun. Like, the rocket jump shotgun combination seems like that'll be fun to play as. But like, once you're there, I'm curious if there's anything that you can do beyond just being a dude in the middle of things. Like, it's gonna be really hard to get on top of people repeatedly.
Right.
But yeah, like, I really want to see a tank gameplay and see, like, they've been showing really good gameplays of like people playing them correctly. So I want to see like what their vision is the correct way to play a tank. Because it seems like it really relies on your team playing off of you. And I'm curious if there's a way to impact the match without having the team playing around you. Or like maybe just force it. Like, it'd be interesting to see how that works out. But that's probably my biggest want. Tracer, I think I have a pretty good grasp on how that character plays, but it'd be fun to see a gameplay. Obviously, it's the fan favorite, so I think everyone's kind of clamoring for a Tracer gameplay.
Yeah,
there's gonna be so many Tracer players when this game comes out.
I think you're right. I was gonna be a Tracer player, and then I was like,
it's too popular.
Yeah,
it's too popular. I can't play Tracer. I have to play someone
else. I gotta
else.
be the hipster.
Yeah,
I think McCree is gonna be pretty popular, but whatever.
McCree will be probably pretty popular too. And like you said, all the FPS guys are gonna go straight to Hanzo and Widowmaker probably.
Yeah.
Depending on their style of shooting. So yeah, hopefully we get some more videos soon. I think that about does it for this video. Again, we'll be talking quite a bit about Overwatch. We're super excited for it, and really, if you haven't checked out any of the gameplay, I hope you've been watching all the clips we've been showing here, and also tune into the videos. Like I said, they've been releasing on Wednesday and Thursday every week, and it's been pretty consistent. It sounds like they're gonna keep doing that, and that would bring them all the way through like the end of June if they keep posting a couple videos a week.
Yep.
So hopefully they keep doing that, because it'll give us something to talk about for one, and also it's just been fun. I've been actually like really looking forward to Wednesday mornings, waiting for the video to go live to watch it during lunch, and same thing on Thursday. So
we have like maybe 3 or 4 other videos talking about Overwatch for anyone interested, and we just put the links down in the description to those if you want to check those out. So hopefully you do.
Yep. By far our most comprehensive, though. It's good to talk about all this stuff in super detail, since it's hard to like get into the nitty gritty until we get some gameplay, right?
Yeah.
And thanks for watching. This would be it for this video, and keep an eye out for future ones. So, peace.
Later.